Hello listeners, I got a quick dump of news for you so you can know what's going on over at the site if you don't already. So listen up as we dive into this news. In the features department, the one-player missions continue, and the latest comes from Caleb Curry with a really in-depth look at Rogue Galaxy and the heart of it all there in Finding Family in a Sea of Stars, Rogue Galaxy's greatest treasure. If you like the movie Treasure Planet or the game Rogue Galaxy, then definitely give this article a read and just see like where some of the magic lies in this game. The other feature that's come up for us is our big annual spectacular that I'm guessing a lot of readers look forward to. The RPG Fan Music of the Year 2020 has gathered all of our favorites that we really loved listening to over this past year, from albums and personal favorites and such. So give that a read and give those tracks a listen. Before we get into the reviews proper, we have a couple previews. First of all, we have the Monster Hunter Rise demo that dropped. So of course we previewed it. Ava Padilla got in on that one and so far is liking how it's shaping up. It looks like it's going to be a good time. Has made some nice new changes to the formula, I guess, or not entirely, but just everything's bigger and better and you got more monsters to take on and it's really looking like it's going to be really impressive. So go give the demo a shot and let us know your thoughts as well. The other game is kind of review in progress / it's out in some forms right now, but Persona 5 Striker, we've got a preview of Nathan Lee's playthrough of it and his thoughts as he's going through for review, so go give that one a read if you need some more Persona 5 in your veins. As one can expect, Caitlin Argyros continues her adventures in Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers and brings us her latest entry in her review journal and I guess with the latest release of content, which she's not super keen on where patch 5.4 is taking things, but if you want to see her thoughts on the Futures Rewritten patch and everything that's going on within it and see if you agree that it sounded pretty good. I mean, she seems pretty keen overall on it. It's still a strong entry, but yeah, she has her misgivings, so we'll see what happens. You may have already seen it or played it already, but Torchlight 3 has released, and I reviewed that one, and I was not super keen on it. It's more of the same, which is cool if you're down for that, but the downside is it's kind of lacking in a lot of ways, and doesn't quite have the same fun and magic that Torchlight 2 had, so go check out my review if you want to see the nitty-gritty. We did a great video review on it as well, if you prefer to just watch and hear your reviews, so you've got options. Go check those out. Alana Heggs had the special privilege of jumping into the GBA classic Mother 3 for us, which, while we don't have an official English translation, it was just one of those games that we just needed to. We needed to have our own opinion on it for what it's worth, and we do really hope we get an official release at some point. She loved the experience, gave it RPG Fan Editor's Choice. Go check out a review for what she thinks of this version of the Mother story. Neversong is a really interesting looking little action RPG that Dom Kim reviewed for us that I had forgot about its existence actually until this RPG, but I do remember hearing about it. Either way, really nifty looking concept. It's indie RPG as heck, so if you're into it, go check it out, but have a look at the review. It's not the most promising in this iteration, but perhaps they'll put their thoughts into a future entry that may extrapolate and expand upon these ideas. Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition. Ava Padilla has been playing this game for ages, and we touched on actually, I think, briefly on this episode as well, but we finally have the next entry in it, and Ava's loving it, and it's just one of those games I've heard so many good things about myself, actually, and really ought to go check it out, but I don't make the time for the point-and-click adventures. I really ought to more often than not. Either way, it got RPG Fan Editor's Choice from Ava, and I recommend you go check out her review to see her thoughts on it, and if you want to dive into this classic point-and-click adventure. And Audra Bowling continues chewing through visual novels at a fiendish pace. This one being called Autumn's Journey, and just nice little magical adventure. Looks really cute, art's really nice, and overall seems to be a promising game. So if you want a nice little dive into a quick little VN, then this seems to be the one for you, so go give it a read. And finally, we have a music review from Alana Heggs, Transients, a near synthwave tribute, which has my ears peaked. I'm a big fan of the synthwave stuff. I like to jam to it for getting into work or workout and such, so this is definitely on my radar now. It's a good bop, and it's never going to be a hard sell when Sean Shafayaski is at the helm, so Alana was pretty high on it, so go check out the review and see if this is one for you to pick up. And that's it. On to episode 206 of Random Encounter. All right, everybody, we're back with another episode of Random Encounter. This is 206, our second of the new year. We're just kind of audibly twiddling our thumbs until we get to our Game of the Year features, which should be the next couple episodes very shortly, barring any holdups at the site. So don't quote me on that when the next one is just us killing time again. No, I kid. We should be into heavy discussion with a big old panel. But to keep things light and easy, it's just Jono and I. Do a little two-hander today just to keep things going. So Jono here, as always, on the mic. Hello, Jono.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing in this fabulous partway into the first month of 2021?
Well, as of this recording, so far the inauguration of Joe Biden has happened and has gone down smoothly. But otherwise, our year was a little weird to start off with, especially for those in the States. We've got vaccines going out and mixed reviews on those so far. We'll see how that all goes down as well. 2021 is happening. We're shockingly almost through the month of January, and it's been a lot, but in a very short amount of time, but also still feels like just more of the same. How about you?
Yeah, I have never... I don't know, like back in, this sounds cynical, but back in 2016, was it 2016? Or was it 2000? Gosh, I lost track. Anyway, I was at a New Year's party, and everyone was like counting down the days, and they're like, thank God that year's over. It was the worst year ever. And this was the year after the 2016 campaign where Trump won, and they're like, thank God it's over. And I just remember thinking, thank God it's over. Like, nothing's going to change. It's a continuation of what's happening right now. And I kind of feel that way a little bit about 2020. Like, I think a lot of people had a lot of hopes that 2021 was going to be magically everything is better instead of a logical continuation, or in some cases, illogical continuation of everything that came before. But I think, honestly, that we have some good things to look forward to in 2021. Finally, there's I don't want to say light at the end of the tunnel as being a little bit but I think that obviously the pandemic is still going on, and obviously vaccines are slowly going out, and they are not going out as fast as everyone wants them to. But realistically speaking, it's a massive logistical challenge to everyone, from provincial governments to federal governments to the companies that are providing the vaccines. Like, the fact that we have gone at this point last year, we didn't even, like most people, heard of COVID-19, and they thought, what's that? No idea what it was going to become and how it was going to define 2020,
right, and we're
2021.
almost at a year now, jeepers.
We're almost at a year now.
I mean, we're at a year of it existing in general anyways, but a year since I think most of the world really started getting hit with the effects and what that meant socially.
Exactly. And I think anyone who says that they know what's coming in 2021, they're lying. We have no idea what we're going to be talking. We have no idea what we're going to be talking about in January of 2022.
Right.
But
hopefully more video games.
Hopefully more video.
I hope we still be around.
Actually, you want to know what? I would wager all of my money that if one thing will survive 2021, it's people playing video games. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that video games is a very good industry in the bad times.
Exactly. As long as it's not apocalyptic, people don't have power, I think they'll be just fine. But that'll be a different thing with, flash floods and fires and no power and whatever, EMPs going off from nuclear weapons. That's a whole different thing. And this podcast will be the least of our concerns.
Exactly.
As we stroll through the capital wasteland. But what's pretty certain is people do have, at the very least, if they're not quite sure how, new governments and how the pandemic's going to flush itself out, we at least have, some good games to look forward to this year. I mean, we had our most anticipated feature has been live now for a few weeks, and people have been chiming on that. We have the games of the year that we just discussed, getting all finalized up and going up on the site, and we'll be having our episode discussion on that and what people are looking forward to and stuff. So yeah, there's some good stuff on the horizon, and I can't really complain. Actually, one of those things, this time last year I was knee deep in Trials of Mana, which was pretty fantastic, or close to it, actually. Now, what did I start the year with? I can't remember what my first review was, but I feel like Trials of Mana, I think, was one of my first reviews of the year. So maybe not have been January, because that came out a bit later, but still, it was a good start to the year, and I've done the same this year with my with the first review I decided to take on.
Oh.
How's it been for you for games? I mean, you made your way through Spelunky 2 finally.
Yeah, I beat Splunky 2, but I mean, you don't beat Splunky 2. You beat the game, and then I've got the first ending, which is like the bare minimum. And then there are the have you played Splunky? I can't remember.
I did play the original one a bit. I got a demo of it on Xbox, and I always wanted to get back to it and then never did.
Yeah, it sucks you in. It's so good. I mean, obviously, there's not a whole lot of story or anything, but it's a game
It's super fun.
It's a game of pure platforming and secrets. If you like those two things, then you're going to love this. But the trick about Splunky 2 is the first ending is, like, the first boss is, realistically speaking, the last boss of the first game. And then you keep going and going. And there are large, extraordinarily long item chains that you need to connect. So you need to, like, to get to the second ending, I need to... What do I need? I need to get the crown, and then I also need to I need to kill Anubis, I need to get his wand, and then I need to die, and then I need to use that to get into the Golden City, and then I need to die a specific way in the Golden City, that I'm resurrected and then sent to the land of the dead, and then it just goes on from there.
That's so bizarre for a roguelike. I mean, do you have to just figure that stuff out, or is there at least somebody in town that kind of, in like whatever the hub is, that kind of points you in that direction? Because there wasn't really a hub in Spelunky. You just kind of got thrown into it and you just went.
There's sort of a hub in this, but it doesn't really provide you with anything useful. At least nothing useful I've found yet. But it's the kind of game that it's a mixture for me of kind of entering a flow state of just playing the game. So usually I'll just toss on a YouTube video on my second monitor and play the game on my main monitor. And that seems to provide me with a very good distraction from all forms of work.
Good on you. We won't tell your boss about that one.
Mm-hmm. What was your first... Neverwing Nights was your first review of 2020.
Neverwinter Nights?
Neverwinter Nights, yes.
Yeah, that was an okay experience, actually. It was not a great game, but it was still fun going through Neverwinter and getting back to a D&D gem that I missed. That's right, I forgot that was that year. I didn't think it was 2019. Well, I think it came out in 2018, just by the time we got to it and got our review copies in, and it was a long run to get through that game, understandably, and getting all the different endings and stuff for the story.
And my first...
well, not endings, but just wrapping up all the different storylines.
Yeah, and my first review for 2020 was Cthulhu Saves Christmas.
Oh, yeah, and then, yeah, that's right. We were just discussing with Mike not too long ago that with episode 200, that how Cthulhu Saves Christmas episode that we did with the fellows from Zeboid just seemed like really not that long ago, but it really was.
It really was.
And what's funny about Cthulhu Save Christmas, actually, if I may, I was trying to get through it for that episode that we recorded with Mike, and I never actually finished it, which is funny. And so all this time, I think I'm at the last boss. I'm literally in the middle, right before the last battle. I think I saved, and I still haven't gone back to finish it. Did you finish it off? I can't remember if you finished it for the episode or not.
Oh, yeah, I reviewed it.
Oh, duh. Yeah, we just finished saying that. That's what I was literally relating to. I'm an idiot. Anyways, yes, you did. Because... Anyways, I don't want to spoil it for people, but yeah, I do want to go back because it was surprisingly engaging, and I really need to play Cosmic Star Heroine and some other stuff. I don't know. It was a good conversation. It was fun.
It's funny. Cosmic Star Heroine is the review that I wrote to get me the job at RPG Fan originally. Huh. That was my sample review. And I remember thinking at the time, I didn't want to write about a game that I loved because I thought a lot of people would be writing about games that they loved. So I wrote about a game that I felt very mixed on. And I think I gave it...
Yeah, that shows, I guess, some more diversity of how you frame that politically.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 75 or something like that. It's never been published on the site, nor will it ever be.
Right.
But, yeah, and then... But I really liked their games, and it's funny, Cthulhu Saves Christmas is I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, it's the only game that I've ever been accused of taking a payout from a company over.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, somebody on Facebook accused me. They're like, "How much are they paying you?" And I'm like, "Zeboid Games are paying me
got a lot."
Yeah, because I liked it a lot. I gave it.
Chickens.
Yeah, I gave it a 90. It was. I mean, it's not the best game I've ever played, but it's certainly not a bad game. And if you're looking for a Christmas special, version of a video game.
Hits that well.
Yeah, it's the best Christmas special of a video game I've ever played.
That's always a good time, though. It's got a fun little world, and its gimmicks are good times.
Mm-hmm.
This year I was saying, now that we're into 2021, as of this recording, a new game just dropped yesterday as of us recording, which would be January 21st, and Ocean's Heart is rad. I'm having so much fun playing it. As of recording this right now, I'm not sure if my review will be up yet or not, but as spoilers, it's pretty good. I'm pretty high on it. It's this great homage to like 2D Zeldas, but also Breath of the Wild. It captures the magic of how great Minish Cap looked. It's not quite as vibrant though. Like it's weird because it is very clearly a Zelda clone. It plays and handles and looks just like a Zelda clone game, rather, in so many ways, but still manages to walk its own path just enough that you're like, no, this is its own thing. And I get it. I love that they're definitely saying this is the game we love and what we wanted to craft something like the games we love, but we've still made our own interesting, compelling world to explore. The lead character, Tilia, is really interesting, and the gameplay mechanics are, while so similar, the kind of overarching how they all work in the world is still a little different enough to make it interesting. And that's where I find it's like a nice blend of like 2D Zeldas in terms of how it plays style, how it looks, and kind of how the items and everything kind of work. But then how you explore the world, and there's quests and stuff to take on, all feels very Breath of the Wild in the scope of this 2D world. It's not quite like fully big, giant, open maps, open world, but you can still kind of go anywhere at any way you want, by and large. And you could get yourself into hot water by exploring some spots that have tougher enemies a bit too soon and stuff like that. So I love the way they're mixing it up and adding a few different role-playing elements, RPG elements into it to shake up and, again, make it their own.
Yeah, I see that there's a crafting mechanic in the game.
There is. I've just finally gotten enough stuff to do it. Like, because early on you cut down some stuff when you finally are able to wield your sword. There's a few things you can just pick up bushes and toss them as well, and you collect like mandrake roots or berries and some other stuff like that. And that's again very Breath of the Wildy, where there's some certain consumables that you can pick up, like apples and stuff that will heal you. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you can also pick up other ingredients, then you can full on go in and craft some potions and stuff as well. You take those to a herbalist's hut or whatever, and as long as you have the right stuff, you can craft like stuff that boosts your sword power or your defense, or refills your magic once you start getting magic items and stuff like that too. And then there's like the elixir of Vitae or whatever it is of that. Yeah, it can fully refill your health, or if you faint, it'll automatically revive you. So, always handy to have those. But yeah, it requires you to sometimes go out and do foraging in the wilderness, and as stuff kind of respawns after you've kind of left the map, so you can go out and try and collect a few things. But I've noticed not everything respawns right away. I haven't quite figured out what the time frame is, but like most like the berries and apples usually come back right away, but some of the other stuff that you need for more advanced crafting and such isn't always there right away unless you've journeyed, I guess, maybe far enough away or something.
I've noticed that. Okay, tell me about the protagonist a little bit in the game. There's a woman named...
Yeah, it was Tilia. Who is very much, looks very Wind Waker Link / Breath of the Wild Link in color palette and everything. But, you start out on her home little kind of island, which feels very Wind Waker-esque in terms of just where you kind of start small on your own little community, and then the adventure expands out as you go out chasing after your dad, who is trying to save your friend. So it's an interesting hero's journey of, like, you're not trying to save the world, you're just trying to figure out where your dad went, which is, again, kind of similar to how Link's adventure starts in Wind Waker, where he goes off to save his sister. Mm-hmm. And so in this case, if one of your friends gets kidnapped by pirates, and your dad's like, well, I'm the volunteer naval officer, I need to go handle this, and then he's gone for months, and then finally you, who were training to become part of the volunteer navy, you're just like, so dad's not back, and I said I would go take care of this, so you tell your sister, your older sister, like, who runs your family in, like, I'm heading out, and she's like, yeah, please come back, but get dad, and come back anytime you need to, that sort of thing, and you go into, the wilds to try and track down these pirates and presumably your dad, and then you're just kind of picking up breadcrumbs along the way in this mystery. But then as you go, you talk to people in the various different towns, and they send you off at different side quests, which just helps you acquire the currency in the game to upgrade your gear as you go. Because in this one, unlike Breath of the Wild and most other Zelda games, which have, I guess, less equipment than Breath of the Wild does, but you can always upgrade your sword or find different armors. In this one, you just have your one sword and just have your one armor, and you can go to blacksmiths and pay them and give them the appropriate materials, and they'll upgrade for you. And sometimes you can find armor. And it always happens that no matter when and how you buy or find a new piece of armor, which looks like your own armor, but it always happens to look a bit better than yours. So it gives you just a bit boost of defense, which is funny. I like the gimmick. And then, you can improve your bow and your sword by finding pieces of coral, which I haven't found the bow yet. I'm like, you keep telling me I can improve my bow. I don't have one. I haven't found where to buy one. I haven't found where to get it. So I'm confused. And it seems like that's the thing that's kind of neat. Where every Zelda dungeon has like a gimmick, right? That you usually find the item you need to surpass it and use it against the boss, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, central mechanic.
Exactly. And in Link Between Worlds, they shook that up a bit by letting you rent all the items right away, which was neat, and kind of let you have your run of Hyrule and tackle each challenge as you wanted. But even then, there was usually one or two of those central mechanics in the dungeons that you needed to work with. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this one, I got a boomerang early on just because I happened to find somebody that asked me to go on a quest to like a pirate base that had the boomerang, for example. Mm-hmm. Whereas I could have not gotten that. And it hasn't helped me. It hasn't really been a gimmick thing that I needed for any of the dungeons, so it hasn't stopped me from progressing. But it's still super useful because, like in Zelda, it lets me freeze enemies. And then I can attack things. So I was able to start taking on stronger things that would be a lot more whacks of the sword. But because I could stun them, I was able to finish them off, which was pretty handy. But yeah, I just think that's like kind of neat how there's certain items that you can hopefully just come across, and like same thing with bombs. Like they weren't a thing that I was like necessarily needing for any of my bosses or any of the dungeons per se, but I just happened to come across them at some point, and they're not available in stores or anything so far that I've seen. There's a kind of bomb that I can craft, but I was only able to craft 5, and I don't have more stuff, so I'm playing like RPG game of I'm just going to hoard these until I finally get the bravery or get the extra items, and then I'll try one out and see what it does. But then that opens up, obviously, once you get these items, like the bombs, I was able to start finding some of the classic Zelda, like cracks in the walls and break down some stones that were only breakable by bombs. So it's neat. Like they let you kind of discover what you need. And then there are some other places that are locked by certain items. Like I had to go into a pirate base, and then it got me this item that gave me strength to finally be able to lift the things I needed to progress through the dungeon. So conversely, there are a few that needs to have the gimmicky thing to get you through it. Mm-hmm. It's cool. It lets you feel really rewarded for exploring, and just drip feeds you the right stuff. I don't know. They've really tapped into what made Legend of Zelda so magical, but also giving you a bit more freedom to kind of take in the world at your own pace, as opposed to feeling that you're just on this linear journey.
It's really nice to hear that, because I find that a lot of games try to replicate the Zelda experience, either the 2D or 3D Zelda experience, but oftentimes they're missing that little bit of magic that right. Zelda games bring to the party.
And you played Oceanhorn, which I've always wanted to get into. Didn't you play the first one, was it? Or was it just you were saying you're excited for the second one?
I played the first one.
And it's supposed to be like Wind Waker-esque, right?
It's very Wind Waker-esque. It's the same central idea. There's islands. It's a 2D Zelda game, essentially. Instead of it being like directly above, it's turn it on its axis slightly. I have to admit, I've never beaten it. I started it. I was enjoying it. It just never really reached that. Like when I was saying, like games that have never really... that are like Zelda but that lack that magic. Oceanhorn is a good example of one of those games. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't seem to have that little bit extra to me that put it over the top. Now, I haven't played Oceanhorn 2 yet. I've heard very good things about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess they've iterated what looked like a good foundation, and they've definitely ridden Oceanhorn as a development team for a while. Like Oceanhorn 2 I feel like it's been like almost a decade between the both of them.
And they've
it might be a little long, but
they've just released a third game. Actually, it's for Apple Arcade. It's called Oceanhorn Chaos or Cronus Dungeon.
Oh yeah,
which it looks.
That's right. And it's like a different kind of format.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, it looks like it's pulling a lot of inspiration directly from Link to the Past, but it's a roguelite. So it's a co-op game. So it's not it doesn't look like it's a Zelda game so much as it looks like it's, I don't know, kind of reminds me of a Four Swords style Zelda game, except in this case you have different classes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it may be more like Triforce Heroes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because you get the different costumes that give everybody slightly different powers, so almost the same, but not quite.
What would you say is one of your, ignoring the one you're currently playing and talking about, what would you say is one of your favorite Zelda-likes?
I would say Moonlighter was a pretty good one overall. Again, there's times where the dungeons themselves wore out their welcome a bit, and because that one definitely leans more roguelike as opposed to being just a self-contained dungeon thing, I just found, sometimes you could get a little fatigued from the dungeon delving and such, because it definitely is more repetitive than most Zeldas, but I found the controls were really tight, and it felt very much like you were playing in that sort of 2D presentation of a Zelda game. Swords of Ditto, again, was trying to do the similar thing as well in a lot of ways, but I found it was also quite fun, but again, it definitely had some of its mechanics that needed a bit of work, and I haven't gone back to it since they did like a big shift of it, but it definitely was 2D Zelda with sort of a Majora's Mask-ish kind of game mechanic tacked onto it, but both of them play pretty good, but yeah, like they just don't quite have that same little magical thing that wants you to keep coming back. And again, it's possible because they're both roguelites with so much repetitiveness to them that it gets you kind of turned off a bit every now and again.
Yeah.
Because, you get that linear dungeon where like, I'm through this and it's behind me, and now I can move on to the next thing. That's kind of where Zelda comes into play. So the puzzles are a one-shot thing, but then you also know that they're going to be pretty in-depth because it's all going into this, whereas with the roguelites, the puzzles are a little lighter because the developers are just kind of, everything's being mashed together at random, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, one of the games that, I know there's a sequel and I haven't played it yet, but I really enjoyed the first one. It was a short little experience, but I really liked it. It was called It'll Do.
I always wanted to try that out.
Yeah, it's much more puzzle. It focuses more on the puzzle side of Zelda than it does the combat, but
which is cool.
It was a cute, fun little parody adventure, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's the game that I really do want to play, and it's been on my list for quite some time, which is inspired by Zelda Link to the Past. It's Hyper Light Drifter, which I still...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Solosi reviewed that, or he just played it and spoke very highly of it.
He just played it and spoke very highly of it. It's technically... Okay. Zelda has always been on the periphery of our coverage, but then again, it's always been on the periphery of RPGs in general.
It's created probably a really solid foundation that the action RPG genre was more or less based around, like those top-down ones at least. Yeah,
and it shares a lot of the DNA with RPGs, but at the same time, it's not one technically. So, no, unfortunately, Hyper Light Drifter is not in our wheelhouse. That being said, it's a game that I do want to play quite a bit, actually. Yep. What else have I played that reminds me a lot of Zelda? There's a lot of Zelda-like mechanics in Evoland 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, well, but that's also because that's what they're doing.
That is what they're doing.
That game fell a bit flat in its own other ways. I feel like I was enjoying it, though, I did enjoy the Zelda portions. I think I got to the point in the first one where I'm just past the Final Fantasy VII homage.
I've actually beaten both of them. I know that... Let me check who reviewed ours. I'm checking... do we even have a review for it? Oh, I don't know if we have one for it or not.
We may not.
No, but I liked it more than most people. Maybe just because it was a nostalgia bath. And sometimes, if they're not,
I like it for that.
Even if they're not amazing, nostalgia baths are kind of nice when you're feeling that you just need that little thing.
Exactly. There's a few jokes that I was like, but for the most part,
oh man,
I liked it.
Oh man, we do have a review for it. Derek reviewed it in 2015, and he gave it a 55.
Yes. Yeah, Derek is not an Evoland fan.
Oh no,
and I think he did actually try the second one as well. And
this is his second one.
Oh, okay, never mind. That was the one, because I think he played the first one and found it very and it is, of course, a very derivative game. And I think he had high hopes that 2 would improve upon the lackings of 1, and then it did not.
Yeah, Bob gave the first game a 75, which I would 100% agree with. I might actually score it a little bit lower than that, but like 75, I would be like, yep, that's correct. I wouldn't have given this a 55. I would have given this probably somewhere in the 70s. But
to each their own.
To each their own, exactly. Geez, I have to read this now. This was long before my time.
You know what? I hear there's a platform that you can go on to scream at people whose ideas don't agree with yours. So maybe you should really let Derek know that he's really let you and the gaming community down with this review.
Yep, that's what Twitter is for. That is the only purpose for it now, is video game discourse. No other reason. Well, it's nice to hear that this game turned out to be nice. When I first heard about it, I was like, Ocean's Heart. I actually thought, is it a spin-off of Oceanhorn? But
that's what I was kind of thinking too at first when I was seeing it.
It's completely separate. I mean, obviously, Wind Waker is a formative experience for many developers out there because it's
one of my faves.
It's friggin' Wind Waker.
Yep. I mean, Summer and Mara was like pretty much, all Wind Waker all the time minus the combat.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a lot of developers are pulling inspiration from that now because a lot of the ones coming up are at that exact age. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of games surrounding that, but I'm delighted to hear that this game is bringing, if not necessarily something new to the party, at the very least, they're executing what's there very, very well.
And that's what it is. And it doesn't feel super derivative by any means. Like, you can definitely see the influences, and the art style is definitely like Minish Cap, but it's done well. They've clearly taken that as like a baseline, but they're still doing their own animation. The biggest place I have as far as criticisms at the moment is it doesn't control as tight as a Zelda experience does, which is kind of frustrating sometimes. I've definitely lost more hearts by randomly throwing myself off docks into the water than I have anything else, which is super annoying. And that's just because you have Tilia, who can move in every direction in general, but when you're doing an attack or using an item to attack or doing her roll, it's in one of the 4 primary directions. So you will think, I'm gonna dodge out of the way at an angle, and then it will pick up or left, and you could go barreling into your enemy, or you will go up and away from what you're trying to do. And the same thing, I'm like, I'm gonna throw my boomerang, and nope, it went up instead of into the enemy, and now they're hitting me and I'm dead, or whatever. So stuff like that can be a little frustrating. I've definitely spent more time fighting with the controls at first and getting used to them, and that's my biggest grievance. But it hasn't ruined the experience, but it's definitely has a bit of a growing pain, that's for sure. And some of the dungeons so far, the puzzles are good and satisfying in their way of like, oh cool, I'm glad I figured that out, but I feel like they could be a bit bigger and longer and have a bit more thrown at you for a 2D Zelda game, which a lot of them put a lot of focus into those really intense dungeon delves, and like, most of the ones in like Link's Awakening or Oracle Seasons and stuff, you're going to be down there probably 20 to 30 minutes, I think, if I recall correctly, depending on how quickly you're able to rip through. I mean, you can definitely do it faster for speed challenge purposes and probably do it in like 10 minutes if you know exactly where you're going how. But if you're looking in every nook and cranny trying to find all the chests, you're probably looking at least like a 20-minute dungeon delve to fix out the puzzles, fight a mid-boss, that sort of thing, right? But in this one, I find, even with trying to do a thorough exploration, you're looking at maybe like a 10-15 minute little jaunt. But that's, maybe I'm just early in the game too. Again, I have no concept at this point where I'm at, because like I said, I don't think my review is going to be done by the time this episode goes live. I could still have some more in-depth dungeons to go through later on that are a bit bigger. And even the one I just did was a bit bigger, but like it didn't have a lot of puzzles. It was more just kind of figuring out how to use the thing to progress forward a little bit, which is kind of a puzzle, but once you did it, that was the mechanic.
Okay. Well, it sounds
like just throw on some battles and there you go.
Yeah, it sounds like a game that would be a delightful little diversion. Like, I have a few
It is, yeah.
I have a few Zelda-likes that are in my wish list on Steam that at some point, if I'm like craving a Zelda game, I will download it. Like Blossom Tales is an example of one of those that at some point I know I'll play.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. Nice.
Yeah, and I think I just might add this one to that same list just for when I'm craving that little bit of when I'm watching a Zelda randomizer speed run on Twitch. I'll be like, I feel like playing a Zelda game, and I'll load that up.
And it's a good one for it. It's got like it's probably even more in our coverage than most Zeldas, which is what like Breath of the Wild was, because it has more of a gear progression system and such to overcome. So while Tilia doesn't level up, so to speak, it behooves you to look for the things you need and to make the money to be able to improve your character. Otherwise, you're going to have a real hard time getting through some of the later stuff. It just will draw things out. And even then, like, it was hard. The game was really difficult at first when I'm just sitting there with 3 hearts and like a basic sword and basic armor. And between jumping into the water and just randomly not moving the right direction, I was getting wrecked and saving and continuing a lot. But now it's definitely not as frequent. I can one-shot most things and it's going okay. And then the boss battles are a bit more of a, again, pattern recognition, and they're challenging and fun. So it's a good one, and I highly recommend if you're looking for that experience, but with a bit more RPG substance, go for it.
Well, I might just try that then.
There you go. And what have you kicked off the year with?
Well, I played 2 games thus far this year. Both of them pretty short. This year has been a little crazy getting started, but I've managed to get through 2. One of which is sort of in our coverage. I'm not going to review it because I don't know how. That sounds terrible, but I don't know how. Have you ever heard of...
Like, don't know how in, like, the cyberpunk way? Or don't know how in, like, just... I'm excited to hear how.
Okay, well, okay, do you know... how can I put this?
This seems to be the struggle.
The developer... Actually, this is a game that's coming out this year, and I'm actually super excited about it. Have you ever played the Stanley Parable?
I have not. It's been on my wish list for a while, and it looks so fascinating as a fun experiment, mind effery of a game.
Yeah, it's not a game. I mean, it's a game, but it's not a game, and that's sort of the theme of the year, I guess, for me.
Social experiment.
Yeah, it's sort of the theme of the year for me, because this is a game by the same developer, and it is super short. It's not a long game at all. It's called Dr. Langstroth, the Tiger, and the Terribly Cursed Emerald: A Whirlwind Heist.
Say that 5 times fast. My gosh.
Now, this is not a game that I particularly want to spoil because the concept is the game. Like, the concept is the game. And if I tell it to you, it's just ruined. It's only 20 minutes long. But it is a 20-minute meta-filled romp where you are going through trying to figure out, it plays a lot with storytelling conventions, specifically for games, how games work. It's very, very difficult to explain, and I feel like a review of it, aside from a short, maybe I will write a short little review of it. But it wouldn't. I don't feel like it would be classifying it as
like
game.
A one-player mission.
Classifying it as a game is a mistake. It's an interactive experience, and I feel like those are happening a lot more and more. And I really like them. I like short stories, and I really do like short stories in games, and I find that there's not enough of them. I like games that I can dive in and get the entire thing in like an afternoon, and I'm like, I'm satisfied. That was absolutely worth the $5 to $10 to $15 that I spent on it. And this is a game that I feel was worth the money. It is not big. It is not... If you are not a fan of experience games, if you're not a fan of like walking simulators, this probably isn't going to be for you. But for me, I really enjoyed it. But the big one that I played this year, and by big, everything is relative, but the experience is another super meta game. It's called There Is No Game, Wrong Dimension. And it is a... See, this is the problem with games like this, is if you explain the game, you are ruining the game, and not even in a spoiler sense. Like, obviously spoilers, there's a lot of controversy about them. I don't like spoiling games for people, but this is more than just spoiling story or character. This is spoiling concept, or spoiling
the conceit of it all, right?
The very conceit of the game, and the joy of the game is getting into it. It's like it's kind of like spoiling Portal for somebody. Like why would you do that?
That's fair. Yeah, which, well, you've been warned, folks. Jump ahead like 10 minutes and see where we're at.
Yeah, so There Is No Game, Rock Dimension. It was a very, very short little game jam entry called There Is No Game. And then it got so popular that the developer expanded it, and it's just a guy. And really, really cool story behind it. He had like I said, he developed There Is No Game in a game jam, and it got a lot of traction, and people were really enjoying it. It was a good seed, a good idea of a game. So he put a Kickstarter campaign out there. Unlike a lot of very popular games, this Kickstarter failed astoundingly hard.
Oh dear.
Like he wanted to earn 32,000 euros, and he earned 3,000. It only reached 6,000 views, so it did not do well at all.
It just got baried.
Yeah, it just got buried, which is a shame. But the developer continued to work on
what its Kickstarter contemporaries were.
Yeah. He continued to work on the game, and then he started to develop the failure of the Kickstarter into the game. Into the game's narrative, which is extremely...
That's pretty rad.
It's pretty rad, and so the game delves into themes of loss, and I guess into an extent failure and compromise, and despite the fact that the name of the game is There Is No Game, there is sort of a game here. If I had to classify as anything, I would say it's a point-and-click adventure game, but it completely and utterly deconstructs what a point-and-click adventure game is. Do
you click instead of point?
Gosh. You bring up the game, and there's a narrator, and the narrator is the program, the game itself, and the game itself is actively discouraging you from playing the game. He keeps putting up barriers to entry, so you will start the game, and the game itself will hide the start game button underneath a safe, or put it in a safe, and then you'll have to using
That's great.
Yeah, and you need to figure out how to get into the safe, and the game's interface for the most part tends to be the interface itself. So I'm not gonna ruin a lot of the best puzzles, but you get into it and you actually need to break the title screen in order to get an item that you can use to affect other screens. And eventually you kind of get pulled in. Have you ever seen the television show Sliders?
I have not ever actually watched it, but fun fact, my uncle produced it.
It was filmed in Vancouver. At least the first 2 seasons of it. I loved it. It's about a group of people who they slide between parallel realities, and they're lost. And I
remember its whole thing, the sliders.
Yep.
Or whatever was the title screen.
I like it. I like it a lot. I still liked it. I've seen a couple episodes as an adult, and some of it holds up, some of it doesn't. The performances do. So in There Is No Game, you end up kind of lost in dimensions, and the dimensions are various other genres of games. So, for example...
Sounds like Reboot.
A little bit, yeah. So, for example...
Sounds like you're, yeah.
You'll find... We're just lobbing the Canadian media properties at our audience today. Yeah, so, you start entering into other game genres, and you need to learn how to break those genres in order to, because you're outside of them. It's like you're not part of the game, you're observing the game, so you need to figure out ways to break the game in order to advance. So you'll find yourself in a point-and-click adventure game starring Sherlock Holmes, which looks exactly like a mid-90s LucasArts adventure game. Or you'll find yourself in a Legend of Zelda-esque game, like we were just talking about. Or you'll find yourself in a gacha game, and you need to utilize the mechanics of these to actually affect the game itself. So, I'm trying to think of a good example. I'm trying to think of a good example of this that doesn't actually spoil the story. So so you have to use the game's mechanics to your advantage. So, for example, there's an item on a shelf in the Legend of Zelda thing, and you can't reach the shelf. You can't reach it. but you can continuously make your character drink a potion that will make the character's health bar get longer. So eventually, if you make the health bar get long enough, the health bar will reach above the shelf, and it'll knock the item on the ground. Yeah,
that's great, and very like Alice in Wonderland-y.
Very much so. And you're playing it, and it's enjoyable. The narrator is really, really funny. And eventually the game starts becoming quite emotionally affecting. It, like I said, it starts delving into some strong themes of loss and how you deal with that loss. And it was very, very unexpected where the game ended up. I know that people, if you wanted to skip, we gave you a warning, a spoiler warning. If you wanted to, you can skip to the end. But the reality is that if someone is really interested in this game, I don't want to spoil it for them, because I thought it was extraordinarily clever, and the cleverness of the game is part of it. Like, it's a key component. It's actually, the cleverness is a key mechanic of the game. So I don't want to spoil it. I do want to say I played it on PC. I think this game would be exceptionally well done on an iPad. If you're playing on, if you have an iPad, I might take a look at the App Store version of it. I think it would be a better experience. It works perfectly fine with a mouse, but there's something about the tactile interface of a mouse pad and a mouse pad versus a touch screen that I think it would work better on an iOS device. So yeah, it's a extraordinarily clever game, very funny in points. There are a lot of puzzles that will make you laugh with delight when you figure them out. Not the hardest game I've ever played. I certainly didn't need a walkthrough for it. I don't think anyone else will either. It's well balanced. The puzzles are not so insane that you'll never be able to figure them out. If you've ever played a video game, you'll be able to figure them out, because, like I said, it references a lot of video games. So
none of our listeners have played video games, so
probably not. Anyway, if the audience, if anyone out there is looking for a point-and-click adventure game that will remind them a little bit of the Stanley Parable or other meta games like that, and they're looking for
an experience.
Yeah, they're looking for some absurdist humor, then There Is No Game Wrong Dimension is an excellent place to start. And I don't know if my review will be up by the time this episode goes up, but it would be up soon after, hopefully.
Well, given your desire to not spoil things, there is no review.
There is no review. That's the review. It's just going to be there is no review.
I look forward to you trying to figure that one out. But that sounds super neat. I want to, just for like just the experiment of it all. Just sounds really cool.
I recommend it highly, Greg. I think that you'd like it. I'm going to recommend it to some point-and-click adventure fans on the team specifically. It's, like I said, it's not a big game. This is an afternoon project. This is something that if you're looking for just a good time and a couple of fun brain teasers and some really, really great performances, it's a great game to try.
That's awesome. Well, to round out the episode, you actually kind of brought up something in the vein of what we were kind of bandying about, getting into a bit of a discussion about here to finish things off, was the idea of co-op RPGs, two-player RPGs, which, again, it's, as we were saying in a bit of the pre-show, like, I'm getting a bit of the quarantine fatigue because I miss hanging with friends and playing with friends and stuff like that. And not that we did a lot of couch co-op gaming or getting into each other's space in that regard, but we played a lot of board games and we still had social time. So now I'm starting to get back to that place where I want those Zoom calls or those Zoom hangouts or and like, social gaming sessions as much as I can. But we've also all gotten to such a place of this is real life now that we've all gotten back to being busy again.
Mm-hmm.
But I've managed to carve out some time since Christmas with a few friends who have brought up, like, my best friend Pat bought me Sea of Thieves. So now we regularly get into pirate shenanigans on a weekly basis, and it's good times. It's just so nice to just serenely go out and start sailing. And then you and Amanda have been playing Divinity Original Sin, which I've also begun playing with my other best friend Troy, who picked it up over the holidays and was like, "Hey, I see you have this. Let's play. Let's do some sort of D&D without D&D." And it's pretty neat too. We're not far in, but you can probably speak more to it, which we have a little bit on the episode.
Yeah, I'm in love with it. Unfortunately, Amanda has hurt her hand fairly bad. She's not like permanently or anything, but she is going to physio for it. And as a result of that, thumbs on the right hand are not a good idea, which means that, yeah, exactly. So either using it with a mouse or using it with the controller. She's been using a controller, is unfortunately out. So we've had to put our Divinity Original Sin on pause. Thankfully, her usual D&D weekly campaign has started up again, so she's into that. That's the reason we started up Divinity Original Sin anyway. It was because her D&D campaign went on pause, so she wanted her daily dose. Yeah. And I mean, we spent we were pretty far in, probably about halfway through, but then we stopped, and unfortunately, we're stuck there. So by the time that we restart, you probably will either be caught up to us or you'll be past it.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I only am able to carve out time on a bi-weekly basis, and we probably would have played this week, but my week has been a little hairy, so I don't know if we'll find the time, but we'll probably get to it next week. We'll see. But it's, I get it, yeah. It's every once in a while I start feeling a bit of strain now in my left hand when I'm playing certain games, like getting back to the controller. I'm like, I haven't done this in a while. I know my hands are feeling it, and it's also probably because I'm back at the gym as well, too, so my hands are still trying to rebuild their grip strength, and they're all kinds of messed up, I'm sure. And I'm old. Getting there, not really that old, but whatever.
Yeah, but enough that things start not breaking down, but
but you're starting to. I'm at the point where I'm starting to realize that age is a thing and how it's going to affect me.
Exactly.
But either way, all that being said, I want to chat about just co-op RPGs and some of the hits we've had in the past, and I mean, there's. It is definitely usually synonymous with a single-player experience, usually, unless you're doing an MMORPG, or you get into experiences like Gauntlet and Diablo, which are a bit more roguelike and action-oriented. But I do wish, actually back in the height of Diablo, I had someone else to play that one with. But I did play a lot of Diablo 2 with friends, or hopping on the Battle.net with randoms, and that was always a good time. I don't know, what was your kind of like formative multiplayer RPG experience? Did you also get into playing Final Fantasy 1 multiplayer, where someone else just gets to control whether they get to attack or not?
Yeah, I mean, I did that a little bit, but usually Final Fantasy was a solo thing for me. I mean, people would come over and we'd play the game, but for the most part, it was like one person watching, one person playing. I've always been a single player gamer. It's just something that I am. I've never really gotten into it. Like, even when I played World of Warcraft, I was always so irritated that if I went into an instance, I would need other people. I was like, why can't I play it by myself? And it was like, well, because it's an MMORPG.
What is with these multiple players in this online RPG? This is absurd. Absurd, I say.
Absurd indeed. And I mean, the last time I really put like a solid effort into engaging with a MMORPG was Fallout 76, and that turned out brilliantly. So
this is why I don't play these things. Gosh.
Yeah, so MMORPGs aren't really my thing. I don't really want to play with strangers.
Which
now,
you said
playing
crosscode, yeah.
Yeah, playing with friends might be another situation, but the problem is that you need someone who is willing to invest the same amount of effort as you are into the game. Like, yeah, Final Fantasy 14 might be fun to play, and whenever we have someone on here, it would be interesting. But I also know that, for the most part, everyone's pretty deep into the game. And I don't really have anyone to play it with.
One day you and I will start together.
Yeah, one day you and I will also write that dual review for the DLC for
Wargroove?
Yeah.
That was one I was going to bring up, actually, because you and I have only dabbled with it a bit, and then we, again, got getting busy with our own things. But I do actually think of it probably at least once a month, like, oh, I want to play that with Jono again. And then projects come up, you're, review leads, you got a lot on your plate. I'm still trying to get abreast of video content, so we've definitely, understandably, been sidetracked quite a bit, and it can be hard to do that. And, it's also interesting, too, because I do get to socialize with you on a very regular basis, so I feel like that box is ticked, so to speak.
Yeah.
I just talked to Jono, so I don't, miss you, so to speak, because I know I'll be talking to you. I know we have a date, but I do miss playing that game. It was fun, even though you handed my arse to me pretty much all the time. Apparently I'm bad at strategizing by comparison.
I think at the time I was playing it more often than you were, so at this point I think we'd both be equally not knowing how the game works. Yeah, but there's a DLC campaign which is co-op, and that would be a fun thing to do. And we've been talking about doing that as like playing it, doing an episode dedicated to it, and maybe just doing a almost a dual sort of review for it. Yeah, I'd actually be down for that. Because I mean, it's Wargroove. It was my favorite game of 2019.
It's so good.
I just loved it. It's everything that Advanced Wars is and more, and
I hope we get more of it with a bit more refined everything.
Yeah, we probably will at some point. I have all of these games installed. Like everyone has all these games installed on their computer. They always have their backlog, but there are a number of games on my computer right now that I am putting a lot of thought into playing, reviewing, and getting up on the site, and that is one of them. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about doing let's talk about doing some more and playing together. That might be fun.
That would be a good time. And one of the other aspects of this that I did actually want to ask, and I did the same thing actually, going back to formative years of passing the controller around to all like have our character take their turn in Final Fantasy was definitely a way to do it. But I think probably like Secret of Mana was probably the earliest I played a multiplayer RPG of any sort. It was when I was introduced to it, and that was a solid one. Yeah,
I actually because I still haven't played it yet, and I actually do need to because I bought it. Trials of Mana, not the remake, the original. Does it also have a 2-player option?
Yes, in the collection of Mana.
Yeah.
Yes, you can play 2-player. Gwen and I did that last year. That was one of our big games we did together. We played it all through, start to finish, and it holds up. It's fun to play with another player for sure. And in many ways, it's better because then you're not trying to bandy about which character has what for spells and such, because the nice thing about Secret of Mana, it was actually pretty contained with playing it one player was fine. Having multiple players obviously lets you strategize a bit better and execute things a bit smoother, but because like the girl was so focused on support, the sprite was just assault, and then you had your main protagonist who was just the attack. You could just go in and swing swords and then L or R into whichever circle menu you wanted to throw out whatever spell. Whereas in Trials of Mana, everybody gets a little bit of like abilities and effects and stuff, and then you get stun locked as you're trying to cast. So if you don't time it outright single player, that you're like, oh, I wanted to cure, but I'm already casting a buff, so now I have to wait for my character to finish doing that, and oh, everyone just got reamed, so I'm gonna die now because I was casting a spell, because you can't go back into the menu while they're doing that. Mm-hmm. It definitely is a lot better, I found, as an experience to have a multiplayer thing. I mean, it's still not like an impossible game, but there's situations like that could be avoided playing with multiple people because every character is so much more fleshed out than what they were in Secret of Mana.
It's one of those games that I desperately need to play.
And I highly recommend it. We did a whole episode in Retro about it for good reasons.
I know. I listened to that episode in the food court at the Eaton Center as I ate a burger from Big Smoke Burger. And
I really want that to be the Eaton Center. Like, that's where people go to eat. It's the center. But I know what you mean.
That'd be a great name for the food court of the Eaton Center. I mean, not that anyone eats there anymore.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was like, wow, that was another time.
That's such a who's on first moment too, waiting to happen. But yes, that was another time. We were actually planning to go to the West Edmonton Mall over this past. Speaking of going to big malls and stuff, that was one of our big things we wanted to do, and obviously couldn't once COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's like a huge thing, but we were going to Alberta anyways for a family visit. We figured, well, we may as well do the touristy thing to do, which is go to the West Edmonton Mall.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as we finish off this question, one thing I did want to ask you, Jono, I guess it's similar to kind of John Tucker's question way back when, but it's is there any RPG franchise that you think would benefit from having a multiplayer iteration, or you wish had multiplayer?
Oh, that's an interesting question, actually.
I can stall for you. I have an answer if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. I will. I need to think about that for a sec.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was always adjacent, obviously, because we've discussed this on the episode of how Legend of Zelda always kind of sits beside it. But I was always kind of hoping back when the Switch one was getting teased that we would get a multiplayer Legend of Zelda experience, because I thought that'd be super, super fun to go down. And we get it a little bit with like Triforce Heroes and such like that. But again, those are so self-contained and gimmicky. It'd be insane And I can't imagine it would be a treat to do. But I mean, we've definitely seen open world RPGs that people can play multiplayer. But I always thought like a multiplayer style Breath of the Wild, where one, in the sequel, if one person's Link and one's Zelda, that would be incredible. And in that same vein of kind of the open world thing, I've always wished that I could also do multiplayer like Elder Scrolls Skyrim, which I guess now you can because there's the MMORPG, so that's probably hits it. But I just found myself wandering that world, wanting another player to share it with, because it's just weird that like there's no one else kind of attempting heroics in this very heroic seeming world, and with how simple it seems to bulk up your skills just by blacksmithing, you figure every blacksmith in Skyrim should be a hero. And then and Dragon Age, I thought would have been, or like Mass Effect. I find either of those would be super cool if another party member could be in there to control things.
I know that there's a multiplayer mod for Skyrim.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and obviously there might be one for Dragon Age too. But they're like fan-made mods, so they're certainly not going to be as polished as like if.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say they wouldn't be as polished if Bethesda was in charge, but that's certainly not true. So, yeah, those are good ones. Okay, I think I have an answer. I was about to say, when I was thinking about it, I was like, I should just say Yakuza and get it over with. But I don't.
That would be super fun, actually.
But I don't. It would be super fun, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, Yakuza does have Yakuza Online in Japan.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but it's not a Yakuza game in the traditional sense. It's a card game.
That's right. That's the one where what's-his-face was originally from, Ishiban.
Yeah, the card game, it's just like 2D sprites and that kind of thing. So not really a Yakuza game. But I don't know how a multiplayer. Pardon me. I don't know how a multiplayer Yakuza game would work. I feel like the world just might be too chaotic. And the game has gotten away from the celebrating the Yakuza in the last... I mean, it's never really celebrated the Yakuza. It's always kind of taken the tact that the Yakuza to be celebrated are the ones who aren't Yakuza. Like, all of the main characters are always out of the Yakuza, almost, when they're... like, Kiryu has not been a member of the Yakuza since the first game, and neither is Ichiban. I think that the game I really would like to see some multiplayer brought to, and it's tricky because it almost conflicts with the central conceit of the game is crosscode. Because
funny.
In crosscode you're playing the Spheromancer class, but you also have like your party members who are with you the entire time, and while you're playing, they have their own fighting styles, they have their own spells, their own special abilities, and they're different from yours, and they seem to be very, very well developed. And I think that would be an interesting to be able to play other classes. I don't know. Maybe that's going to be in some DLC in the future. Maybe, but I feel like this is a game very much in the same style as Second Densetsu 3, Trials of Mana, where you can play with multiple people. Yeah, I feel like it's a world that would be ripe for that kind of thing, and it would be a very, very fun game to play with another person. But again, it conflicts with the central conceit of the game, which is so.
It would definitely need a completely different story, but it would be kind of neat taking that and like you're both competing heroes to see who can save the game, save the world first. That would be kind of fun. Like kind of almost speedrun challenging it in a sense.
Well, there are speedrun challenges built into the game where if you take too long, your companions will beat dungeons before you. But again, those are that's AI.
Cool. But if it was actual real life people that could get there before you, and it made it almost more of a roguelike experience that you're like, well, I didn't do it this time. And like it affects how well you score or how well you get a better ending or not or whatever by trying to directly compete with each other or leaving behind traps or something for the next person to come through to make the dungeon harder or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that might be something they might want to look at in the future. They've set up a few cases where DLC is not promised but is implied. And part of that is the world itself, where there is a temple which has like dozens of players out front being like, when is this temple going to be completed? We want the next temple, and that kind of thing.
So was that a nod to DLC in general and how that's going to work, or was it an actual thing that's going to come from the developers? That's fun and meta.
Yeah, it was another fun meta thing. Man, there's so much meta in games nowadays. It's sometimes nice just to play a game that's a friggin' game.
okay with being a game, yes.
That doesn't reference other games and doesn't like just creates its own world. But
well, have
again,
I told you about Ocean's Heart? No, okay, they actually do have one meta thing in there, and that's about it. Which is just really funny too. It's just the whole like, what was it? Oh, we go down here, but like I can't swim. And Tilia's like, who can? And I was like, oh, so does that mean I'll never be able to swim in this game? I don't know if I'll get the quote unquote Zora flippers or not, but it's just kind of funny. And then again, it's that poke at like, so how come Link can't swim at the beginning of the game? Why does he just flounder all the time and drown? Did his parents fail him so bad? Breath of the Wild he could though, I guess.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild, you had to. That was one of the first areas where you could get a sword. There's a platform just outside the Temple of Time. It's like a little lake, and
lakey kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a little lake, and there's like a little island in the middle of it with a rusty sword, and that you have to get to it.
I didn't actually hesitate, and I feel like it's because I played it like a year later, so I already knew he could swim. But I wonder how many people for the first time in Breath of the Wild were like, "Wait, is this a trap? Can I swim? Will this be okay?"
Be hysterical if they took away his swim ability for Breath of the Wild too.
Just to spite us all. That'd be awful.
Just to screw with the audience. Anyway.
It would really screw us up. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's weird, and like there's so many games out there that could be just absolutely utterly broken by making it multiplayer, because obviously it's not in the necessary framework. The game's either designed for it or it's not, but I just think there's a lot of worlds that we can definitely explore together as friends, playing games at the same time, word of mouth, or Twitch streaming and stuff like that, and or game journals like what Slowly runs with Retro, and that's kind of fun to hear people's experiences and their passion and what they found or didn't find. But it's a wholly other experience when you do get to go through it together and you're sharing in the moments that you've created together, especially like, as you've told me with you and Amanda and Divinity Original Sin, where you're like, we set up this rad spell reaction and it worked or whatever, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I have those you're like, oh my gosh, we took down that boss in Diablo 2 that squeaked by, but thank goodness we took this skill, all that stuff, right?
Yep. I mean, to be completely honest, yes, multiplayer RPG would be nice, and obviously playing Divinity Original Sin with Amanda again would be nice. I'm still desperate to find someone to play Portal 2 with. I still haven't played the multiplayer. I've never found anyone who has not played the multiplayer, but who has played the actual game.
They're both great. I play a lot of the multiplayer, and that's another thing. If we can set aside the time, I'd go back to it. I probably remember a fraction of the puzzles, so it definitely wouldn't be broken for me. But that is a game that is so fun to teamwork and figure out.
Honest to God, if they released Portal VR, it's probably the only thing that would actually get me to buy a VR headset.
Hey Amanda, they just released this great new game. It's only $400. Can I get it? What do you mean $400? Well, you see.
Hey, I look, a new Portal game would be worth it. Would be worth every cent of it.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely. The literal portal to another world. Any rate, let's round things up here today with that, because again, it's just the two of us. You're going to get tired of listening to us if you're not already after whatever 30-odd episodes we've been working together. I'm kidding. You people have been nothing but generous and supportive of us throughout the past couple of years now. But if you do want to throw us love or hate or anything else, you can do so at podcast@rpgfan.com. I'm G. Delmage on our Discord. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else at Craig Delmage. Jono, they can find you how and where?
They can find me on Twitter at Jono Logan, or you can fire off a message to us through email, and we'll see about responding to it on the show.
Exactly. I'll take it. I've already been beseeching folks for queries and improvements that we could possibly make to the show, because how can you perfect on this? Let me be honest. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, check out the Discord, the podcast channel on the RPG Fan Discord. Please give me some questions. We want to have some from you folks, and just let us know how we're doing. We're both, outgoing, charismatic people who are doing this because we just like to hear our own voices, apparently. But, we want validation. Give it to us.
I mean, that's why I went to school for a theater degree.
Yeah. Somewhere, somehow, our parents failed to give us just that right amount of love that we needed, so we need to find it everywhere else. That's a deeper conversation, and I'm kidding. You can also find other podcasts with us, I guess, since I've already started the theme of people desperately seeking attention. We have Retro Encounter, we have Rhythm Encounter back for all the music in your ears, and that one just dropped not too long ago. Basically everything that was missed since Rhythm Encounter was down, so that's pretty cool. Let us all get caught up with some of the great music that was missed over the past few years. And then Hat and Eric are on the Phoenix Edge podcast doing their thing, and otherwise that's all the good stuff that's going on. Reviews, Twitch, everything else. You can find us everywhere on the web.
The usual. And we're obviously going to have tons of content coming out over 2021 and even throughout January, and we will have our Games of the Year feature coming up pretty soon, and we have some podcasts accompanying that as well.
Exactly, as I was teasing, so look forward to it. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening, everybody. For myself and Jono, bye now.
Bye.